Good evening. Sorry, it's October, one of my favorite holidays. 2020 has been nothing but scary. This episode, we're going to dive into Missouri Amendment 3, and our panel also takes apart the first presidential debate. Well, at least until Chris Wallace shows up with a folding chair. No, I'm just kidding. Settle up, y'all. It's Freedom Roundup. Welcome to Freedom Roundup. I'm Shaun Horner, Executive Director of the Heartland Fund Incorporated. And welcome to the Freedom Roundup. I have with me on my panel of distinguished guests, Chris Chambers, Jackson County Committee Treasurer. I have also Dakota Worrell, Policy Director for the Jeff Coleman campaign. I have Michelle Horner, the woman that puts G in gorgeous. Also my wife. I know, I couldn't help myself. President of the High Noon Republican Women, Jackson County Republican Committee member, and Associate Director of the Heartland Fund Incorporated. And also the Honorable Jeff Coleman, representative of the great state of Missouri, 32nd District. Say hi, y'all.
Hey!
There we go.
Hey.
Now, guys, before we jump into tonight's topics, I wanted to mention something that came over the wire today about COVID. Apparently, the President of the United States and the First Lady have it now. Wanted to get your feedback on that. See what you thought. It seems to be going rampant right now all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's obviously not ideal. So not an ideal situation here. He has been admitted to Walter Reed Hospital, but it's out of an abundance of caution. I imagine that he's been his physician released a statement saying that he's been getting an experimental drug, experimental drug, Regeneron.
Regeneron, yeah, I saw that too.
Which is an antibody drug. So that combined with, careful eye of the doctors at Walter Reed.
We've seen vitamins too.
We've seen an upkick here in Missouri, just generally speaking as well. Michelle, you've got the High Noon Republican Women's Group. Has anyone contacted it there at all?
No.
Jeff, in the Capitol, we had our governor.
The governor and his wife both had it, but I think they've both been cleared now. Okay. So I think they're back out on the road.
They just tested positive. They didn't have symptoms either, did they?
Well, the governor did not have symptoms, but his wife did. The First Lady did have some symptoms, but very, very light.
Okay.
So it's it's starting to really not be as bad as it was.
Yeah.
Because even my friend that lives in St. Louis, her daughter had got it. I mean, she lost her sense of smell and her sense of taste, but that's all she really had. She didn't have anything else. It was sort of kind of weird what she had. So,
and I just want to point out real quick, I think it's kind of disgusting to me that the Democrats are wishing death not only on our president but the governor as well. Mm-hmm. That is sad.
Yeah,
well, even
it
Senator
really
Lee,
is.
And Senator Lee has it. Remember?
Right. Senator Mike Lee from Utah.
He has it too, and they're wishing death on him. So they're wishing death to any Republican that has.
Yeah, and you notice that Twitter and Facebook haven't closed any of those accounts for the horrible stuff they've been saying.
The death statements. They're still on there.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you that I got wished death on when I just didn't wear a mask.
You did. I did. Your campaign feed was full of. I hope you die, a-hole. I mean, they were calling you disgusting words.
All kinds of disgusting words.
And the tolerant left is not so tolerant.
We're not so tolerant.
No, we're
all.
Seriously going to have to do an entire segment on the COVID and how, and I've said this since the beginning, we made fear a virtue. And so it's now, regardless of whether the masks are effective or not, and there's, both sides of that. I mean, I'm going to be very curious to see how much we've kept down, say, the common cold and the flu this season, right? Because we didn't have this kind of protections before. I can already tell you that just generally speaking, deaths in the United States are down this year. I saw that statistic, which I thought was interesting. So apparently,
overall death, though, is down?
Yeah, overall death is down.
I thought this was the worst virus, and it is killing more Americans than
Well,
who died in.
Well, didn't Joe Biden say 2,600 and some odd
Well, at first he
military
said-
members got it, and then it was only actually 7 have died?
He also said 200 million
yeah,
people.
2/3.
As
come
he was
on.
as he was
Two
done
out
with the
of every three.
speech.
Yeah.
As he was done
Well,
with his speech. Yeah.
I will tell you before we go on to Amendment 3, which I want to get to, your odds of recovering from COVID or even, symptoms or whatever are still infinitely better than somebody actually getting better from Trump derangement syndrome. So with that, I'm going to go into Amendment 3, and I want Jeff to speak a little bit about Amendment 3, just generally speaking, and then we'll start throwing some questions.
Well, so just in general, Amendment 3 is to try to correct what Clean Missouri did in 2018. Amendment 3 tries to go back and fix our redistricting and how we draw our district lines to what they were from the 60s. And that's here in Missouri. I heard today that the way we did things prior to the 60s was from the federal government. It had been done that way for a long time, and Missouri adopted that federal government way of doing things in the 60s. And we then...
And that's the one with the two panels, the Republicans, the Democrats.
Correct. We had each side had 10 people, 10 Republicans, 10 Democrats. They were a combination of private citizens and politicians. They went to each side's rooms, so to speak, and they drew their own maps.
Okay.
They would then come together, overlay the maps, and try to come up with a map that would work for both sides.
Okay.
It's my understanding that happened one time since the 1960s. So,
Okay, so with that in mind, the one thing is, no, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to ask you specifically about that with the it only happening one time where they agreed. The opposing anti-amendment 3 website always talks about gerrymandering. Okay,
right.
Which to me, if it was only successful ever once, that would have been the time it was gerrymandered. I mean, if any time, right? I'm not saying that it was, but I'm just saying that what they're talking about. Because what happens if the two sides don't agree? They can't come to agreement.
Yeah, if they don't agree, then it goes to the appellate judges.
Okay.
So it goes from a bipartisan way of doing things. If they can't agree, then it goes to a nonpartisan way of doing things.
Okay.
Okay. The appellate judges get the information, the maps. They then draw the maps from that point on, and they're the ones who come up with the final solution.
Okay.
So this bipartisan way of doing things, what is this? Is it a commission, and who makes up this commission?
Yeah, that's the two sides get appointed by the governor. Each side, the Republicans and the Democrats, get 10 people on each sides. They then draw their maps, and then they come together and they overlay the maps. Okay.
Why would that be a bad thing? I mean, I know we don't. We're kind of going, well, it's not a bad thing, but I mean, what is the opposing side saying about it being a bad thing? I mean, they use the word gerrymandering like that's the everyone should know how that applies here. But if you're using two groups and allowing them the opportunity to be bicameral coming together,
first of all, the term gerrymandering, you're right, it gets thrown out a lot.
Yeah.
And gerrymandering is the exact opposite of that.
Okay,
right? Because gerrymandering is what they want to do, and the definition of Clean Missouri. Clean Missouri literally says we're going to put as close to it dictates how many Republicans and how many Democrats come together in a district.
Right.
That's gerrymandering.
Right there. We get R4 here, you're 3 here. Yeah.
You are determining an outcome based upon you putting the number of people in to vote. And the way we used to do it prior to 2018 didn't have anything to do with how many Democrats and how many Republicans were in a district. It had to do with taking the population of Missouri, dividing it by 163 reps. The determining factor is we want it to be as compact and contiguous
Right.
as possible.
Right. So you don't have those long line kind of districts that are stretching through, and
Right, because we want our representatives representing the people that they live with.
yeah. And as Republicans, we always have a hard time with, anybody comes at us and says, it's not fair. We always seem to internalize that. In fact, I think that's what Michelle was saying earlier when we were talking about it. We were talking about how some feedback you were getting was that Clean Missouri is not necessarily the right way to go, but we shouldn't be overturning it with Amendment 3 or something like that. Weren't you
A
saying?
lot of people have said that they don't think this is the way to go because the people had voted for it. But I have to always tell those people that tell me that is that a lot of people did not realize at the time that this was in the Clean Missouri bill.
Right.
So
It was sold as kind of the opposite of what it actually was doing.
Yeah, and it that the people were more. They thought it was about cleaning up how people got donations. They didn't realize it was rezoning and redistricting how people got the representatives. So that was all masked and covered up with this Clean Missouri. So
And it was kind of both. It was kind of both.
And I know a lot of Democrat friends of mine, because we were talking about it, and I said, well, if I live in Jackson County, my values are way different than someone that, say, lives up in Cameron in a farming district. So why would I want someone that lives in Cameron to represent me because we have different values and different needs? I was like, why would I want someone in the Boot Hill representing me when I in Jackson County have some different needs than someone in the Boot Hill? I say, because we live in different agricultural and different areas. Why? I mean, because you will never have the way that they're going to draw the lines, the person living within your area ever again if you keep it this way. So
Right.
it has to change.
To take that even further, it's interesting because the Democrats down at the House, down at the Senate, are just as concerned about this bill as we are. Because what happens here is when you have to bring people a 50-50 or as close to a 50-50 competitive district together, we're a 40-60, a 40 Democrat, 60% Republican state. Where do we get 50-50?
Right.
So there's going to be some areas that they don't try to pull to,
Right.
but there's going to be some areas in the suburbs where they're going to pull from the inner cities
Right.
because that's where they're going to get their Democrats from.
Right.
Well, the inner cities it's typically where the people of color live, and they're afraid that they're going to lose the people, the color representation for that area. So you start pulling people and putting them into districts out here. They're not only worried about losing that to Republicans, but they're also worried about the people of color losing their representation to white people out in the suburbs that are Democrats.
Yeah.
So, and that didn't come from me, by the way. That came from a Democrat.
Yeah.
So just understand that while they feel this necessity to back this bill or to back the vote no against 3, which is what they want you to do, they would love to see us win this. They would love to see everybody vote yes, because then they don't have to worry about that.
Right.
When you Google search yes on 3, you can't find it. It's all no. And
Yeah.
because the Democrats and the people that want this Amendment 3 have used all the money they're raising to buy Google and to buy all these search engines, so you can't find what Amendment 3 really is about because they're lying on all of them.
Yeah, and so where do you think that money's coming from?
Yeah.
That
And
money-
Yeah, and if you actually, like Shaun
I was
looked it
just
up.
getting ready to
just
mention
looked
that.
it
I looked it
up.
up. I went to their website. If you click on the contribute button, it takes you straight to Act Blue.
Yep.
It's just, I mean, right there.
Where
Not
do-
even hiding it.
Yeah, and it's coming from George Soros. I'll give you I say this all the time because I did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming from George Soros. It's coming from Planned Parenthood. It's coming from the unions, and it's coming from this husband-wife couple down in Houston, Texas. You can go out there and look where the money's coming from.
Right.
And so, why is it so important for those outsiders to come into Missouri and change our district lines?
Mm-hmm.
What's so important to them about that?
And I don't know if the state, the House and the, you guys and the House and the Senate can fix this initiative petition where only Jackson County and Springfield and St. Louis get a say in what gets put on it, because I think more counties and people need to say if these stupid initiative petitions get through, because
Well, then you're talking about
and I think they need to be
like an electoral college on a local level kind
yeah,
of thing.
on a
'Cause
local level. Well, what percentage of everybody in Missouri has a say instead of just these big?
They do, but the
well, they
problem
don't.
is
Not
the-
with the initiative petitions, they don't. You only need a certain amount of people to get on
Right.
to get it on the ballot, and if you have the signatures from all over the state, I think it would be a little bit harder for these people to get these dumb things on the ballot.
And you're absolutely right, Michelle. That the thing is that we've got to make it to where right now only 6 of our 8 districts have to approve this to get it on the ballot. And what needs to happen is that all 8 districts need to approve it.
Right.
They have to get signatures. They need to get signatures from all 8 districts. Because what sense does it make that you leave 2 districts out?
Well, and then on top of it, they're lying on the ballot with this yes on 3 is, because it was read to us during the Jackson County Committee meeting, Republican meeting, what it says, and it's very misleading what yes for Amendment 3 is, what Amendment 3 is.
and it was done on purpose.
It was done on purpose, but I'm just, because it was taken to court and they did all this stuff to purposely lie to the voters what Amendment 3 is about, and
So-
it's ridiculous.
So what's interesting about that is that the Democrats took it to court because they didn't like the language. The thing about the language is it's almost exactly what the language was on Amendment 1 when Clean Missouri was out there. There's hardly any difference. And the judges didn't rule against it then. And now we get an activist Democrat judge that heard this case, and thank goodness she didn't get her language on there. It's bad enough as it is right now, but her language was even worse. And so we took it from her language and we took it to the Supreme Court, and they kind of came in the middle with this and said, okay, we'll relax the language, but in essence the language is still there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's so frustrating, because the Democrats keep, I say the Democrats, maybe not all of them, but the ones that are on my Facebook, they want to, I'm giving you a shout out, guys. They want to keep saying, they give this narrative that we're changing the will of the people, that 62% of the people voted for this. What they're not telling you is not 62% of Missouri voted for this. 62% of the people who voted in November of 2018 voted for this. So it's not the whole state of Missouri.
No.
It's just, in fact, if you back it out, it really, I think it came up to 40-some%, if I remember the numbers right.
And what does that even mean to go against the will of the people when the people who voted for it didn't know what they were voting for? That's kind of disingenuous, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, that was going to be the next thing, Dakota, I was going to ask you, was it seems that we've got a lot of that legislation type of stuff being passed by proxy. It doesn't go through our legislative branch at all. It just goes straight to the people. And it seems like that's the new inroad.
Exactly. It's a sort of roundabout way. It's a way to go around the legislature, which the Democrats don't control currently. So if they can pass it through some surreptitious means, and of course if they were honest about the initiative petition ballot language, it still wouldn't have passed.
Right.
So they had, not only did they have to go around the legislature, they had to lie on the ballot and go directly to the people and lie to the people to get it passed. So it's a double whammy there. So of course, and again, these are not Missourians who funded this. These are not Missourians who pushed this interest. They're outside interests. Who
No, it's just what's humorous is when Amendment 3 was written, the Democrats take it to court, which is exactly how the process of districting would normally, have happened anyway. Republicans would, it's
Interesting,
like,
right?
It's like,
Yeah.
but we can't use it for that because that's gerrymandering. But we can use it to get the language approved on the ballot, and that's okay.
Well, I love that video
Didn't make any
that
sense.
that came from the floor of the legislature, where the two Democrat and Republican were arguing about it, and the Republican called out the Democrat, saying, well, but you're saying that the previous system is gerrymandering. Well, why don't you tell the people, the audience here, what the previous system was, if you're saying it was gerrymandering? And he eventually got the guy to admit that, well, the previous system was, it would get kicked to the courts if they couldn't decide. And he said, okay, so the last time that we redistricted, who drew the maps? Was it gerrymandered by the legislature? Who drew the maps? And he had to admit in public to the floor and admit that it was actually judges that drew the previous maps.
Yeah.
So he had to admit that either judges gerrymandered our districts or it wasn't gerrymandering and he was lying.
Yeah.
And it was a Democrat judge, by the way, that drew the lines.
And so to be able to go out and see that video, it's real simple. Just go on my Facebook page because I'll be glad for everybody to go out and view that video because it's an awesome video.
I think
it's
they
a
need to.
powerful video. And I don't care what the Democrats that keep going on my webpage and say about it. It's really powerful.
Yeah.
And so go to Citizens for Jeff Coleman Facebook page. You'll be able to find that video.
So did you already say who the debate was between on the video?
No, the representatives of the debate was from or between was one of our Republican representatives who was Phil Cristofanelli, and one
Thank you for saying that name because I wasn't even going to try.
yeah, and the second one, the Democrat, was Peter Meredith. Both good people, but Peter does a good job of debating. But on this case, I think we know who won that one.
Yeah, it was pretty clear.
So one other piece that kind of gets overlooked with this is the funding piece for Amendment 3. We kind of briefly touched on it. What changed when Amendment 1 was passed when it came to political funding?
So that's another thing that the Democrats will have you believe this time, that we've got this eye candy up there and that we're just trying to take your attention away from what the purpose of this amendment really is.
Right.
So basically what we're doing, the Democrats came in 2018 with Clean Missouri and reduced the lobbyist gifts from basically unlimited down to $5, which I still today can't figure out where they came up with $5. But
Price of a coffee.
yeah, well, no, not really.
Okay.
Can't really get a
Price
coffee for that.
Price of my coffee. I mean, Mr. Plain Black with a couple of sugars.
Got me all choked
Yeah,
up there.
I know. We need some coffee.
So we're just saying, why stop there? Just take it all the way to zero. It doesn't make any sense to have a $5 lobbyist gift. There's nothing there for that. So we took the lobbyist gifts out, down to zero, no exceptions. And then we moved the senators' contribution limit from $2,600 down to $2,500. It just makes it an even number. It's right in the middle of $2,000 and $3,000. Our contribution for state representatives is $2,000. And by the way, again, they'll say, well, what's the purpose of that? It's just $100. Well, last year, or back in 2018, when they changed ours, it went from $2,600 down to $2,000.
Wow.
So what's the difference there? Well, what's
Well,
$600?
and if you've ever
not a
tried to
big
do
deal.
any sort of mailing, I mean, that stuff, I mean,
Yeah.
anything is prohibitively expensive. And
Yeah.
if you're going to do anything at a grassroots level, if you don't have a sugar daddy like George Soros,
Yep.
I mean, getting that kind of funding is hard. I mean, it's just hard to run any sort of campaign.
It is. So those are the only two changes other than the district line changes. So
Okay.
there's really not more to that than just that. They'll also talk about, well, you're trying to take away the underage kids, and you're trying to take away the minorities. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing in that bill that talks about anything other than those three topics that we've already talked about.
Okay, and that's what I noticed. I noticed on the website it came up well. This not the Amendment 3 website, the other one, the opposing, which I'm not going to give any press to.
Yes.
Gave some very, I don't even know how to describe it. I don't want to say lies. I want to say expanded truths.
Misleading.
Disingenuous. Disingenuous. That's the word I was looking for, because it's like they mention the $5 thing, but then they take it one step further. Like, oh, they just want lobbyists to
Well, the one thing you can always rely with Democrats is that they always tell you what they're doing. So what they accuse you of, they're doing themselves, and they are infamous for doing this. I mean, so now they're just doing it again. They're accusing us for something they do themselves.
Well, and I immediately thought of the website, that racist.watch website that I always mentioned, that was the impetus for me to start the Heartland Fund, and where good hardworking people were giving $5-10 to the 2016 Trump campaign, and now their names and addresses are listed on this website. Not because they are, just because they gave $5 or $10 to the Trump campaign. It'll drive you nuts.
So we see that what you're talking about, Michelle, with the Democrats saying what they're doing by turning it around and spinning it and saying that's what the Republicans are doing. We're seeing that on Coleman's campaign page. Just every single time there's a post on there, you see the Democrats come across and say how misleading it is, and they start giving all this misleading information. And Jeff literally posted the synopsis of the bill on his Facebook page, and they said that is misleading. How in the world is the actual wording, language, misleading?
I know, and it's gotten to the ridiculous where I follow Jeff like really religiously, but I had to stop reading the comments because I would get so mad, because there's one that I told him, I was like, I just went off on someone because they really put him down and they said he was lying. I was like, where are you getting this? Because that's not factual at all. I was like, state your facts. And they refuse to state facts. They're just basing their stuff on feelings. And just like this Breonna Taylor, whatever name, the girl that got shot.
Right,
I mean,
right.
There was no facts that she did anything wrong. In fact, facts came out today. In fact, the Daily Mail reported that she shot first. She shot the police officer first.
The boyfriend did.
No,
The
she
boyfriend.
did. The
I
police
thought she
officer-
was napping.
No, she wasn't.
sure?
She shot first. There's an actual document that her boyfriend came out and said she shot first, and then he changed his statement later on when he got in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You could read it on Daily Mail. I read it. So
I did read that. It's interesting how the media was having us anticipate new information coming out,
and it is in the stuff that was released today from the
closed hearings.
Yeah, from the grand jury hearings.
Turns out that information that got released was not what they wanted to hear.
Yeah, and so, but I'm just saying, this just proves that they base their riots, their stuff on feelings and not actual facts like they do to Jeff. They
Well, and you see that all the time with the stuff we're seeing for the
Clean-
Amendment 3, the
Amendment
Clean
3.
Missouri, because
Yeah, I mean-
it's always about, and this is something we've brought up in I think every podcast we've done so far, which was they always love creating a problem and then coming up with this miraculous solution, which is going to cost even more money.
And
Oh,
breaking
okay.
news. I'm sorry, when you called on me, there was breaking news. The Daily Mail, which I always go to because they tell you more what's going on in America than American news does. This is serious. Trump is having troubles breathing after being medevaced to Walter Reed. So he is. There are statements coming out that he is having problems breathing.
So that's never a good sign with COVID patients.
No.
Do you think they will put him on a ventilator?
I don't think he'll allow that.
They did with Boris.
I don't think they will
Or-
with Trump. I don't think he'll allow it. I think he'll
Boris
he'll
Johnson.
do.
Boris Johnson
Boris
was on it
Johnson
for 3
was on a
days.
ventilator?
For 3 days or a couple of days.
I don't think Trump will allow that. I don't think Trump will do something else.
Dr. Oz came out today, and he was talking about the ventilators and some of the new treatments, and they're getting away from the ventilators now and using forced air instead of the ventilators because they find that the people recover faster and better from
Which is the
forced air.
oxygen mask,
Right.
like oxygen mask, which I think that's what they'll do with Trump. They'll just put him on an oxygen mask and help him breathe better. So, which I don't know why they ever used ventilators in the first place, but hey, what do I know?
Yeah, there was a paper that came out, scientific medical journal that said that the setting when the COVID crisis originally started out, I mean, in the very beginning stages, they had people on ventilators, and they found that people were dying not from COVID itself, but from the ventilators because they had the pressure setting wrong, and it was kind of collapsing people's lungs. So we've learned a lot since then, but we had to learn through this, but I mean, definitely they are moving away from ventilators because it's definitely not the best way to handle it.
No.
All right, so our hopes and prayers go to
Yes,
the
definitely
president and the
pray
first
for it.
ladies, because I know she was the one they were saying was having the harder time breathing when they left for Walter Reed. I'm a little concerned that all of a sudden that flipped, because remember, he's much older. He's in his 70s. She's not. Is she 50 yet? I think she's the same.
Yeah, she is. She's a little bit older
Little
than
bit
she's
older
like
than me,
52
yeah.
or which
Something like that. So
I
anyway,
don't know.
all right.
I'll have to
So
figure out that.
now that we made the transition to COVID and POTUS, let's just continue on with the debate. I did not watch the debate. I listened to the debate. I try to do that. I've done that ever since I had a political science class where they talked about debate between Nixon and Kennedy. So I've always listened first and I'll watch it later. Specifically for that reason, because the people that were listening to that debate on the radio thought Nixon won. Anyone who watched TV thought exactly the opposite.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I always listen first. I mean, I'll have it like on YouTube or whatever, whatever's broadcasting it, but I'll only listen to it. And I do that on purpose because I get a much different take. So I want to do hot takes from everybody first about how they took the debate, or what their initial thing was. Like I want to hear who you thought did the best, why, and who won. Okay. So who wants to take this one first?
My hot take is I have mixed feelings, and I know that that's lame, but I personally love when Trump goes on the attack and gets aggressive. Mm-hmm. But I know while I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, keep going, I know in the back of my mind that it does not play well with a lot of moderate voters.
It doesn't.
And independents.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me kind of not so enthusiastic, is because I know that right now we're trying to win over the group in the middle, but that's what he should be trying to do right now in this phase of the campaign, and that did absolutely nothing.
So Dakota, hot take: if the election were right now, who would win?
Oh well.
No, I mean, based on if that performance swayed those centrist voters.
So actually, the answer that no one probably is expecting is those middle of the road voters will not vote at all.
Yeah,
they were so disappointed in both people's performance at the debate that they would rather not vote at all.
That was my take as well. Crest, you want to go next?
Yeah, so I think America lost because that was a horrible debate. It was a kindergarten show.
I don't mean to get rated PG-13, but my initial take after it was that was a shit show.
It was an show. Absolutely,
it was absolutely awful.
And to the point Dakota was making,
I'll do mine last.
So everybody at this table would agree that bully Trump is what we like. That's a reason we voted for Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
He is a bull in a china cabinet. And going on Dakota's point, the average American voter does not like that. The suburban housewife, I always hate when they say that word, but your stay-at-home mom or your working mom in suburbia, they don't like that either.
No.
They didn't like Joe Biden and his lack of knowledge, the shut up mans and calling Trump a clown.
Yeah.
Trump screaming and yelling at Biden, and then Chris Wallace yelling at Trump as well. Nobody liked that. Everybody lost.
No.
I thought it was ridiculous to see that from the very beginning. I understand why Trump went in hot. He went in hot to try to trick Joe Biden, to throw him off his game. That's what I want to say. To throw him off the game. So Joe Biden, we all know he might have some dementia. I mean, it's evident. It really
Just
is.
some slowing in the years at the
Well,
very
and
least.
he's on so much drugs on top of it that it didn't work as well. I mean, well, he is. I mean, he's getting older, so he's on all these medications, and so who knows what he's on and why he refused to even take a drug test.
Allegedly.
Right.
For alleged drugs. But he obviously is on something, so if he was on something to keep him calm, that would not, Trump just going at him, it would come as like,
There's a story out there that specifically mentioned barbiturates.
Yeah, it would calm you
don't know
down. I mean, if you had somebody else in your ear or something, because he refused to even do a electric test to see if he had electric field. So if he had that on him, you had somebody else in your ear, you're not even listening to what the guy's telling you.
Okay, hold on. I want to get one last thing from Cress. Cress, elections today, who wins?
Joe Biden.
Okay, that's what I did.
Just because the suburban housewives, or the suburban women, I should say, would go for the safer bet of Joe Biden.
Okay. All right. So, Michelle.
I have to disagree with you. I'm sorry, because I'm a suburban
that's okay.
housewife.
Please do.
I'm a suburban housewife, and I see the decline in the schools. I see what's going on with the kids and the fights. As a parent in the school system and a working mom, you go with where your money is, and with someone raising your taxes and openly admitting it, I would not say Trump. I don't think the women are going to go for, I would say Trump would win, but no one would go for Biden. As a working mom, I just don't see that. Because a lot of working moms like someone that's a little pushy, because they are the Scottish nominee, Amy
Coney Barrett?
She's submissive at home to her husband. She lets her husband rule the roost because that's what a wife does. We allow, but I'm sorry, but that gets into the next thing. But anyways, but as a mom, we want a man that's strong to lead us into the right thing to do. And our POTUS, he really is that person. And I'd have to admit, with the debates, I think the debates were horrible. Chris Wallace was just a horrible person to put.
Well, their second choice is not going to be any better.
The next one is a donor to Biden.
No, intern.
An intern to Biden. So it's not any better. But I agree that I think the country lost. And I understand, you guys said that, he went in there fighting to try to get Biden off. But with someone in his ear, if he's taking medications, it's just, you're not going to get any reaction out of him.
I kind of want to point out something that I want to know if you guys noticed this. Trump is often called a bully and, accused of saying mean things all the time. But did you notice, anyone else notice that the only one that actually name-called and insulted that entire debate was Joe Biden?
Yeah.
No, you're fine.
But I think he was being pushy to the fact that he was trying to just get a word in edgewise and not get cut off, because he kept getting cut off and he kept getting name called.
Well, he had two people interrupting him.
And he had two people interrupted him. So, yes, I would be a bully too. And I'm sorry, when my kids interrupt me or when someone interrupts me, I get very offensive and I get very mad.
The website, speaking on what you're talking about, the website lifesite.com did a tally of the number of insults and blasphemies that occurred in the debate. Trump had 7 insults, and Biden had 24 and 3 blasphemies.
And when we're talking insults, Joe Biden was literally name-calling, calling him clown, stupid, idiot, shut up. Trump never said any of that. He might have said, "Don't talk to me about being smart."
Smart, yeah, and that's where half of those came from.
Half of that came from that.
Yeah.
But honestly, that was a pretty. Trump always comes in with the best zingers, and we know that he's thinking on his feet.
Mm-hmm.
So the man can still, go on the attack without name calling, which is a lower form of argument.
Yeah.
He always has a higher form of argument, despite Joe Biden supposedly being the more mature
All right,
candidate.
Michelle, votes tonight. Who wins?
I say Trump. I mean, if there's a lot of stuff that's been out there and a lot of people still support our president, I don't think. I mean, unless you count all the people doing the voting and taking the ballots and voting for people and doing the voter fraud, if you count those,
the ballot harvesting.
The ballot harvesting that's been going, which is rampant.
Well, that's why you don't. It goes back to the whole thing where if you're not willing to put $5,000 cash in an envelope and mail it somewhere, you probably shouldn't do the same with your vote.
Well, the people in Minnesota are they're big. Ilian Omar, or whatever.
Yeah,
her name is, Omar.
the Project Veritas.
I mean, they are literally paying people for
Project
their ballots
Veritas.
and filling their ballots out for them. So, I mean, this is happening all over the United States. They say it's even happened here in Missouri.
All right.
Just saying, but if you don't count all that, I think Trump wins.
So it's a Trump, it's a no vote, and it's a Biden. Okay. All right,
Yeah,
Jeff.
I had to go with that.
All right, Jeff, you're up. What were your initial thoughts on the debate? Who won, and if the snap vote was tonight, who would win?
So, the debate, when I was watching it, I felt pretty much the same way as Chris. I really didn't think that that anybody was a winner in this situation. And you too, Dakota. Yeah, I apologize. I didn't mean to leave you out of it.
No, it's okay.
So yeah, the Trump interrupting all the time was kind of bothersome. But I got to tell you, where I do disagree with Trump, not Trump. I just called you Trump. Chris.
You win.
See, I called someone Bush, so don't go back.
I kind of feel
my
lucky.
medicine.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's a huge mistake, Jeff.
Huge.
Because, and to Michelle's point, my wife, she is probably one of the most middle people there is, because she always wants to listen to everybody's argument, which is good. But then when the argument is done, I'll say, well, this is why I'm right. And she'll say, yeah, but they feel the same way that you do. They feel that they're right. I'm like, well, come on, somebody's got to be right. Might as well be me, right? And she's always trying to take both sides.
Sure.
And it was amazing to me that while I was sitting there saying, oh my gosh, Trump is just driving me nuts, and she goes, why? I think he's doing an awesome job. And I'm like, my jaw's on the floor, because
Your wife actually said that?
Yeah, she did. Actually, she did. And I'm like, what? Who are you? Because she's always trying to say, well, maybe this is the way they're thinking. It's that critical thinking type of thing.
It's also
right?
where you started watching it in the debate too, because at a certain point it was 2-on-1, and it was very obvious he was all by himself.
True. Well,
Right?
her point was, yeah, he is butting in. However, he's putting out facts.
Right.
He's stating the facts, and that's why he's doing the better job. So
Yeah.
I was impressed that she was involved, and she thought he did a good job. And I hope that next time, there is a next time that they actually do the other debates,
Right.
that he'll come to it with a different approach on things.
Okay. All right. So snap poll. Who do you think wins?
I'm going to have to go with Kamala Harris. we realize that that's where all this is going if Biden wins, right?
Right.
Because he's not going to be there
No.
for very long.
No, he's not.
Kamala will come in, and they'll deem him.
I think I saw a meme to that effect that said, "What's your plan?" And I have a plan for the next 5 years, and then underneath it says, "What, to not die?"
Yeah.
All right.
So I want to say real quick, I think the biggest issue I had with that entire debate, there was no policy discussion at all. They were bickering back and forth about each other's personality, and that is something that bugged me the most about it.
Yeah, and I want to give my 2 cents on it too, because like I said, I did the old Nixon Kennedy thing. I listened first, And what I noticed was Trump was exactly trying to do that. He was trying to get Biden off footing for a variety of reasons because he's got a temper. Everyone knows Biden has a temper. You see it all the time. They try to say, "Oh no, he's just joking," but it's not. Biden was trying to be overly calm, and the only way he's able to be calm is to send out those barbs, and that was helping his temper. I mean, that's what he was doing. And then Chris Wallace was, I don't know what, he was the only person that didn't accomplish what he wanted to do with that at all. Everyone else got what they wanted. Trump did the attack. Biden was Mr. Calm, and the problem was neither one was working, right? And that's why it came off just so irritating, because you're like, okay, somebody get the upper hand because you're just butting heads.
And I think Chris Wallace went in with the best intentions of keeping it civil, making Fox look good, make himself look good, and all he did was butt in between the both of them. I really think if he would have let them go on for a couple more minutes apiece, with each other,
that it would have calmed down faster.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's what I thought too. The other interesting thing I found was listening to it, I heard a whole heck of a lot more interruptions by Biden, because there's a lot of this like sighing or, like, come on, really under the breath stuff that you only heard if you were listening. If you're watching TV, you weren't catching it. Now on TV, you were catching the body language piece. Yeah, so that was my initial take as well.
I think if you want a policy discussion, don't have Chris Wallace ask the questions.
Yeah, no, and then the next guy's going to be just as bad. Lastly, we want to do a little roundtable where we start talking about the things that popped out most about the President of the United States debate. We're just going to jump right in. So who wants to go first with the thing that popped out the most from the debate that you took as either a very good, or very bad? Anyone want to take it first? Dakota.
I wish there was more discussion about policy, obviously.
Right.
And it was frustrating to me that every time we got close to policy, one of the two would derail it with some kind of something. And usually, I take that back. Trump usually would try to correct the record.
Right.
He did a lot of trying to correct the record and set the
There
record
is a lot
straight.
of blatant
lying.
Lying.
Or
I mean, I don't know how to
misrepresentation.
Right. Like
And,
like the famous, taking out of context quote where they only do the first sentence about the very fine people. That
Exactly.
came up so many times, where it's very fine people, and it's like, okay, now do the next sentence, because right there it tells you, we're not talking about the loonies on either end. We're talking about the people that are concerned in the middle.
Well, in addition, they were trying to push Trump to keep going that direction, and then when they talked about packing the courts, he didn't push Biden to go further. He gave one or two times he went to him, and then Trump was the one that was pushing the most.
Right.
And you know what? People say, "Oh, I wish you wouldn't interrupt so much," but you know what? That's kind of important. And if the moderator's not doing his job, and Trump is the only one pushing Biden on an issue like that, go for it, Trump. Push him.
And that was definitely a problem with Wallace. He didn't push with follow-up questions. He didn't hit Biden with any sort of follow-up. I don't know if it's because he felt bad because Trump had already done it at that point, done his job for him, or what the deal was. Listening on the radio, I'm telling you guys, if you can listen to just the audio part, totally different debate. It's painful again, so start drinking beforehand. But seriously, go ahead.
Biden still isn't coming out whether he's going to pack the courts or not. If he's going
to pack it. He's absolutely going to.
I love his deflection too. Every time he's asked the question, I'm not gonna answer the question because I don't want it to take away from the issue, which the issue is, am I going to pack the court or not?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, does he have to check with Kamala first?
Well, and remember in like the last Democratic debate that he had with Hillary Clinton, she was given the questions beforehand. And to me, it seemed like they did the same thing with Biden. Like they gave him the stuff and they were like,
well,
he had an agreement.
They
had an agreement with him not to do so, that he could only do so
Didn't
much.
Donna Brazile?
Yeah, she came out and admitted it.
Yeah. And now she's a commentator on Fox News.
And remember, Fox News was like,
I don't think they necessarily gave him exactly the questions, but the topics were all softballs.
Yeah,
all
they
of
were,
them
but
softballs.
they've always
much.
said, but they've been doing softballs to him this whole entire
Oh, yeah.
time he's been
Oh, yeah.
running. No one has ever just asked him stuff.
No, you watch some of those
Hardball
recordings where he loses his temper with constituents, like the people he's trying to get votes from. If you watch him pass the cut, specifically where the handler says, "Okay, that's enough. Thank you." You know, you hear them in the background saying, "Thank you very much." From that point on, that's the real Biden.
Well, and then remember, he just went and talked to the troops, and they didn't clap for something.
Oh,
He
no.
called them stupid bastards.
That was a joke. That was a joke.
No, it wasn't a joke.
So
I know. It was.
I'm going to play that video right now.
Okay.
Understanding what you may hear about me, I have incredibly good judgment. One, I married Jill. And two, I appointed Johnson to the academy. I just want you to know that. Just clap for that, you stupid bastards. Just clap for that, you stupid bastards.
Yeah, so you can tell that it is totally not
A joke.
Yeah,
It's not.
no, it's
So-
not. It's not. The problem is he's speaking to military personnel who may or may not even want to be there. So getting a response is entirely not. I mean, it may not even happen.
Well,
It
the
may-
majority of military are for Trump. They're not for Biden. The retired military.
The upper echelon, the more
upper echelon,
political.
but they're all retired.
Yeah.
Are for Trump. I mean, it's for Biden. So you're just. And remember that Obama packed the military for people that would support what he wanted to
Right.
do, and Trump got rid of them.
So the only non-softball that I thought out of all the questions, and it was missed, was the race and violence in cities. That could have been Trump's ace in the hole if he'd caught it right. Now the problem was the way it was staged. It wasn't addressed to him right, and unfortunately, instead of him coming out and saying, "I'm the law and order guy, I'm not for the riots," they flipped it, right? They flipped it, so it's like, well, we've got these things going on, peaceful protests, and Trump's like, they're not peaceful at all. It's
Well,
like,
and I love how I wish if the roles were reversed and they had pushed Biden to condemn the violence the way that they pushed Trump to condemn white supremacy,
which he's
for
done
the
on
30th time.
Yeah, I was gonna say numerous occasions.
Wouldn't
before
that have
that.
looked a lot different? Because, again, Chris Wallace, once again,
Right.
did not push him to condemn Antifa, to condemn violence in the streets, to condemn the group that shot that Trump supporter in the streets. No one pushed him on it.
So the part I was waiting for was the question about the Green New Deal that Trump slid in, and Biden said, no, that's not part of my platform. And then everyone under the sun,
it's on
goes
his,
to
it's
an
on
And
his,
if you
website.
literally go to the website,
Yeah.
go ahead.
yeah, it's literally on the website. We believe in the Green New Deal, blah 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 blah. And it's like at that point, I'm listening to it, and I was thinking of it as a wrestling match to begin with because of Trump and the WWF way back when, and I'm like, and then Bernie Sanders comes out with a steel chair. It's like
But
you
no,
almost
there's-
expect it.
Sean, there was no follow-up
No.
from Chris Wallace at all.
No, because he knew that was a hot potato. One, two. If Biden answers, there's only two outcomes, right? He's either going to get rid of the moderates, or he's going to, push off the far left faction, right?
Well,
There is
and-
no
and-
win for him.
Yeah, and Trump hilariously pointed out, you just lost your base there, buddy.
I know, but I really wished, and that was just one of several times. And maybe Trump was sick at the time. Maybe he wasn't feeling too well, because it seemed like he'd get right up to the point where he's ready to bring the hammer down, and then didn't.
Or
like he felt bad.
purposely holding back,
Well-
because everyone's telling him what a bully he is. So of course he's got to hold back. And
Well,
look-
which I've always had a big problem with, because it's like we finally get a bulldog in the office. We don't have a Mitt. We don't have a McCain. We actually somebody that will not only say you're wrong, but use colorful metaphors in the middle of it and point a finger. Right? We finally have somebody that'll do that.
I like we go back to Mitt Romney to follow up with your point. Mitt Romney apologized for his wealth, right? He's a wealthy man, made lots of money, did well for himself. He always apologized for it,
Right.
and had to virtue signal about how sorry he was for being wealthy.
Yeah, woe is me. I made.
yeah,
I
but he
made some
hasn't
money.
given up that money.
No,
he's not going to.
But on
No,
the
he's
flip,
not.
but on the flip side, Trump comes out, and how does he approach it? Guys, I'm really rich.
I don't.
Well, and he doesn't take any money.
yeah, I was
He's
gonna
not
say,
taking any money
for
from
salary.
for salary. So
Yeah, he's not going to be coming out of this
Do you remember, speaking of I'm really rich, do you remember what he said? I think it was on MTV Music Awards. He said, what's the difference between my hair and a wet raccoon? A wet raccoon doesn't have 25 million effing dollars.
And that's what we love, right?
Right.
He's not apologizing for being wealthy.
Yeah, I'm
No.
still kind of curious to see if he wasn't sick or feeling a little bit under the weather, because there was something
Just not
right. And I thought originally it was the game plan, but now that he's gone, now that he's tested positive, and there's reports that he's just not, he's having trouble breathing or whatever. I'm concerned that the debate, he wasn't 100%.
So do you think he knew he had COVID at that point?
No.
And purposely went to the debate
No.
so he could debate Joe Biden?
No, and they're saying that they're hiding, like, again, this is Daily Mail, that 24 hours they knew Hope Hicks had it and had kept it secret for 24 hours. I don't know how much I believe Daily Mail, but I do know that they report a lot of things our news media does not.
Right.
So I don't think that he tested positive or thought he was
No,
sick.
originally, here's the way I thought it would play out. The bar for Biden was don't suck. Right? If he didn't suck,
Don't be a dead corpse
don't
and look alive.
and don't do a gaffe.
Just do what we say.
You'll tie. Right? The bar was very low for him.
Yeah, that's the main problem, I think, with the debate, was the bar was set way too low for Biden.
It was way low.
And I think that's going back to beforehand, where everyone was playing up the Sleepy Joe and he's got dementia, and Trump will wipe the floor with him because he'll never be able to string two sentences together. Well, guess what? All Joe Biden had to do was string two sentences together.
That's all he had to do. And Carville was on, I think, MSNBC, and he was talking about how at this point his advice to the Biden campaign: no more debates, because he
That's
didn't.
smart.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't screw up, And honestly, I would have, if I was his campaign at this point, you're not going to win anybody else. All you're going to do is hurt yourself. You know what? You've been tested positive for COVID. Lay low until the end of October, and then suddenly you're okay, and you can come out.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree.
Any other pieces from the debate that you guys want to mention? There were a couple other pieces. The only other big one.
The fact that
Yep, go ahead.
Trump hit home with the law and order aspect of it, turned around to Biden and asked how many law enforcement agencies endorsed him,
Which are unions.
And we all went to the Jackson County Gun Club, where we had two police officers there talking that night. One of them was a union spokesperson
Right.
for the police here in Jackson County, or I think a regional, anyway.
Yeah, something like that. I don't remember.
So he was a spokesperson for the union, and he said they overwhelmingly endorsed Donald Trump in the entire region.
Right. And they were talking about how they're having trouble recruiting, too.
Correct. But, I mean, what he got Biden on, people want to see law and order.
Yeah.
People in the suburbs want to see law and order. People in the cities, especially the cities, want to see law and order.
They don't want to become Chicago. All right. Well, that brings to a close this edition of Freedom Roundup. I want to thank all of my fine friends for joining me and talking into microphones this evening. Cress Chambers, Dakota Worrell, Michelle Horner, Jeff Coleman. For myself, Shaun Horner, good day.
See you, Shaun. Bye.
See you, Shaun. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Sean.
This podcast has been brought to you by the Jackson County Republican Party. And promotional considerations given by Heartland Funding Incorporated, helping promote traditional values and candidates. Contribute at jacamo.gop. That's JACAMO.gop. And fundingtheheartland.com.